Jessica had always dreamed of exploring the stars. Ever since she was a little girl, she had gazed up at the night sky, wondering what lay beyond. The idea of traveling to distant planets and discovering new worlds excited her more than anything. So when she was selected for the deep space exploration mission, she felt like all her dreams had come true. This mission wasn't just any mission. It was one of the first human expeditions to an uncharted planet, far beyond the reach of any previous space exploration. The journey to the strange planet was long and filled with challenges, but Jessica was determined. She had trained for years preparing for the unknown. She was confident that she could handle whatever came her way, but nothing could prepare her for what was about to happen. One quiet evening in the vast emptiness of space, the spacecraft was suddenly rocked by a powerful shockwave. A cosmic storm had appeared out of nowhere, faster than anyone had predicted. Jessica and her team tried to stabilize the ship, but the force of the storm was too great. Alarms blared, and the ship's controls went wild. The crew worked frantically, trying to regain control, but the storm was relentless. Before she knew it, Jessica was thrown against her seat as the ship spiraled out of control. Her heart raced in her chest as the violent shaking continued. Panic spread among the crew, and for a few terrifying moments it felt like the entire ship was going to break apart. She tried to stay calm, focusing on her training, but fear was creeping in. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the storm stopped. The ship was in ruins. Jessica woke up to a scene of chaos. The air was thick with dust and smoke, and the lights flickered weakly. Her head throbbed and her ears rang from the deafening sounds of the crash. She had no idea how long she'd been unconscious, but she knew one thing for sure. She was alone. The rest of the crew was nowhere to be found. Panic surged through her as she stumbled to her feet, her mind racing to process what had just happened. The ship had broken apart, and there was no sign of life from the crew members. The communication system was completely down. The only thing left for Jessica was the wreckage of the spacecraft and the unknown planet she had crash-landed on. The first thing she noticed was the silence. There was no hum of machinery, no voices from the crew, just the eerie quiet of an alien world. The sky above her was a strange shade of violet, and the landscape stretched out before her, unlike anything she had ever seen. Jagged rock formations jutted out from the ground, casting long shadows over the barren terrain. The air smelled different too, thick and metallic, but not unpleasant. Jessica could see no signs of life, no animals or plants, nothing that resembled what she was used to on Earth. Her heart sank. She was alone, completely alone. Jessica took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She knew she had to think clearly if she was going to survive. There was no time to waste on panic. She quickly surveyed the wreckage, looking for anything useful. The ship's supplies were scattered across the crash site. Food rations, water, and emergency equipment were all within reach. But the most important thing was the spacecraft's communication system, or what was left of it. She needed to contact Earth, or at least send a distress signal. But after inspecting the wreckage, it was clear that the communication system had been completely destroyed. There was no way to send a signal. As the reality of her situation sank in, Jessica's sense of isolation grew stronger. She was stranded on a strange, unknown planet, with no way to contact anyone and no idea if she would ever be rescued. The loneliness was overwhelming, but she knew she couldn't afford to dwell on it. She had to survive. With a heavy heart, she began the difficult task of scavenging for supplies. She found what she could, gathering water, food, and a few tools that might come in handy. As she worked, she noticed the strange plant life around her. Some of the plants seemed to glow, faintly, casting an eerie light in the otherwise dark landscape. Others were twisted and spiky, their shapes unlike anything she had seen before. Still, Jessica couldn't afford to be distracted by the oddities of the planet. She had to focus on staying alive. Over the next few days, Jessica did her best to keep herself busy. She set up a small camp near the crash site and tried to make sense of the situation. The planet seemed to be completely empty, with no signs of intelligent life. She explored the area, hoping to find something, a sign of life, a clue about the planet's history, but all she found were more strange plants and rocks. The landscape was desolate and harsh, with no sign of civilization. As the days turned into weeks, Jessica's loneliness grew. She spent most of her time working on ways to survive, finding food, collecting water, and figuring out how to stay warm. The planet's temperature fluctuated wildly, from freezing cold at night to blistering heat during the day. It was a constant battle to stay comfortable, but she managed to make do. Despite the challenges, there were moments when Jessica felt a strange connection to the planet. Sometimes, she would sit for hours, staring out at the alien landscape, trying to make sense of it all. There was something mesmerizing about the way the light shifted across the rocks, casting long shadows and making the world around her feel alive in a way that was hard to explain. But even in these moments of peace, Jessica never lost sight of the fact that she was alone. There was no one here to help her, no one to share her hopes and fears with. The isolation was starting to wear on her, and there were times when she wondered if she would ever see Earth again. One day, as Jessica ventured deeper into the planet's strange terrain, something unexpected happened. She stumbled across something that didn't belong, something alive. It was faint at first, a flicker of movement out of the corner of her eye. She froze, heart pounding in her chest, unsure if she had imagined it. But then she saw it again. It was small, darting between the rocks. At first, Jessica thought it might be some sort of animal, but when she got closer, she realized it was far more unusual. The creature was unlike anything she had ever seen. Its skin shimmered with an iridescent glow, and its body seemed to shift and change shape as it moved. It was like nothing from Earth. The sight of the creature sent a chill down her spine, but at the same time, a strange sense of wonder washed over her. She wasn't alone on this planet after all. For the first time since the crash, Jessica felt a flicker of hope. She wasn't the only one here. But what was this creature? Was it a native species or something more? And could it help her find a way off the planet? Her mind raced with possibilities. Perhaps this was the first sign that life existed here. Maybe the planet wasn't as deserted as it seemed. But as she watched the creature disappear into the rocks, she realized something else. She still had no idea how to survive. And this strange new world held more questions than answers. But for the first time in weeks, Jessica didn't feel entirely alone. Something was out there watching her, and that thought brought both comfort and fear. The world she had crash-landed on was more mysterious than she had ever imagined, and she couldn't shake the feeling that there was much more to discover. And so, with a sense of cautious optimism, Jessica prepared herself for whatever came next. The strange planet was full of dangers, but it also held untold secrets. She wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was clear. Her journey had only just begun. Weeks passed on the strange planet, and Jessica had slowly started to accept her new reality. The initial shock of the crash had worn off, and now she was in a routine. Each day felt like a battle for survival, and every moment she spent on the barren planet made her feel more and more isolated. The loneliness pressed down on her chest like a heavy weight, but she did her best to push it aside. After all, she was an astronaut. She was trained for situations like this. She just had to keep her focus and find a way out. The alien landscape with its violet sky and jagged rocks had become both familiar and unsettling. Jessica spent most of her time scavenging for resources, building makeshift shelters and trying to make sense of the strange environment around her. She had no way of knowing how far she was from her crash site. She only knew that the planet was vast and the wilderness was full of surprises, some of which were terrifying. One afternoon, while she was out looking for water, Jessica noticed something unusual. There was a strange shimmering light coming from behind a cluster of large rocks. At first, she thought it was just a trick of the light, maybe a reflection from the unusual plant life or a glimmer from the surface of the planet. But as she approached, the light seemed to grow stronger. It wasn't natural, and Jessica's curiosity was piqued. She felt a chill of unease crawl up her spine. Still, She had no choice but to investigate. As she crept closer, Jessica's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't just light she was seeing. It was a figure, a creature standing motionless in the shadow of the rocks. It was humanoid in shape, but unlike anything she could have ever imagined. The figure was tall, almost towering, and its skin seemed to glow with an otherworldly light, shifting between shades of blue and green. It had no facial features, no eyes, no nose, no mouth, just a smooth, featureless surface. Jessica's heart raced and she froze in place, unsure of what to do. She had no weapons, no way to defend herself. She was completely vulnerable. The figure didn't move. For a moment, everything was still, like time itself had stopped. Then, without warning, the creature shifted its body slightly and Jessica felt something strange, almost like a vibration in her head. She didn't hear it, but she felt it. It was like the figure was speaking to her, but not with words. It was more like a thought, a presence that filled her mind. The feeling was overwhelming, like a wave of emotion that she couldn't explain. She felt a sense of calm, of understanding, as if the creature knew exactly who she was and why she was there. In that moment, Jessica realized that the figure wasn't a threat. It was something else. She couldn't explain it, but she felt safe. The creature had no malice in its presence, only curiosity. The strange, silent connection between them seemed to bridge the gap between their species. And for a few moments, Jessica was no longer on an alien planet. She wasn't stranded, and she wasn't alone. It was as if the universe had sent her a message that things weren't as hopeless as they seemed. But then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the creature vanished, disappearing into the rocks, like a shadow fading into the night. Jessica stood there, frozen, unsure of what had just happened. Had she imagined it? Was it some sort of hallucination brought on by the isolation and stress of being stranded? She couldn't be sure. But deep down, she knew what she had felt. It was real. Over the next few days, Jessica found herself thinking about the encounter, constantly. Who was that creature? What did it want? And why had it appeared to her? She knew she couldn't just ignore it. The creature was a sign. Something more was going on here, something that she didn't yet understand. Jessica decided to explore the area where she had seen the creature. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, but her instincts told her that there was something important there. As she moved through the rocky terrain, she noticed something else. The same shimmering light from before. It was faint, but it was there. The air felt thick, almost electric, and the ground seemed to pulse beneath her feet. Jessica's curiosity was now mixed with a growing sense of urgency. She had to find out what was happening. Following the light, she came to a small valley, nestled between two tall rock formations. The valley was covered in a soft, glowing moss, and the air was filled with a strange humming sound. Jessica felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up as she stepped deeper into the valley. It was beautiful, but there was something unsettling about it, something she couldn't put her finger on. And then, as she reached the center of the valley, she saw it. A massive stone structure hidden behind the rocks, almost camouflaged by the glowing moss. It was ancient, with intricate carvings and symbols that Jessica didn't recognize. The structure seemed to pulse with energy, as if it was alive. She approached cautiously, her heart pounding in her chest. What was this place? Who had built it? As she ran her fingers over the carvings, she felt a surge of energy pass through her. It was like a jolt, a sudden rush of power that made her vision blur. She gasped, pulling her hand back. The energy was overwhelming, but not painful. It was as if the stone had a life force of its own, and it had connected with her. For the next few hours, Jessica explored the strange structure, trying to understand its purpose. The carvings seemed to tell a story, one that she couldn't quite decipher, but there were clear signs of an advanced civilization. Whoever had built this place had been incredibly intelligent, with knowledge far beyond anything humanity had achieved. The more Jessica explored, the more she realized that she wasn't just on any ordinary planet. This was a place of ancient history, a place that had seen civilizations rise and fall. That night, as Jessica sat by the fire she had made, trying to digest everything she had discovered, she felt a presence again. This time it was more definite. The creature from earlier appeared in front of her once more, but this time it wasn't just standing there. It was communicating with her, not through feelings or vibrations, but through something else. The creature was speaking directly to her mind, filling her thoughts with images, sounds, and emotions. It explained that it wasn't just a single creature. It was part of a much larger race, one that had traveled across the stars for millennia. They were explorers, much like Jessica herself, but their purpose was different. They had been searching for other life forms, other civilizations, to learn from them, to grow, and to eventually unite the cosmos. The creature told her that the planet she had crashed on was not just a random world. It was a key location, a place that had once been home to an ancient civilization that had achieved great things. But that civilization had long since disappeared, leaving only ruins behind. Now the alien race had returned to study the remnants of that lost world, and they had found Jessica, by accident, but also by design. The creature revealed that Jessica wasn't truly alone on the planet. There were others like it, scattered across the world, observing and learning. It wasn't a coincidence that she had crashed here. The universe had brought her to this planet for a reason. She was part of something much larger, something that transcended her own existence. She was a bridge, a link between her people and the alien race that had been watching over the universe for centuries. Jessica's mind spun with the implications of what she had just learned. She had been stranded on a strange planet, yes, but she was not abandoned. The alien race had been watching her all along, and they had brought her here for a purpose. She was a part of something bigger than herself, and her role was far more important than just surviving. The creature, or rather the beings it represented, had plans for her, plans that she couldn't yet understand. As the alien disappeared once more into the shadows, Jessica sat in stunned silence, trying to process everything that had just happened. The isolation and loneliness she had felt seemed to vanish, replaced by a strange sense of belonging. She wasn't just a lone survivor. She was a part of something extraordinary, something beyond her wildest dreams. The adventure was just beginning, and the answers were waiting for her to discover. Days turned into weeks, and Jessica's life on the alien planet had become a strange mix of survival, discovery, and constant wonder. The crash had shattered her world, leaving her stranded on a strange and empty planet. But now, after her encounter with the mysterious glowing creature, she had begun to realize that this planet wasn't as empty as she had once thought. There were secrets here, hidden within the rocks and ruins, and she was starting to uncover them, piece by piece. The creature, whatever it was, had told her that it wasn't alone. It had been part of a larger group, a race of explorers who had been watching over the universe for centuries. The idea of being observed by something so advanced both frightened and fascinated her. But more than that, it made her feel as though she wasn't completely abandoned. The planet, with its desolate landscape and strange ancient ruins, had once been home to a great civilization. Now, it seemed to be a place of study, a site where this alien race was trying to understand the secrets of the past. Every day, Jessica would explore the area around the ruins, searching for clues. The symbols carved into the stone were like a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. They seemed to tell the story of an advanced civilization, but their meaning was lost to time. She had no way of knowing what had happened to the people who had built the structures, but there were hints, small details in the carvings, the layout of the ruins, that suggested they had been scientists, explorers, or perhaps even travelers like her. They had left behind knowledge, technology, and stories, and Jessica was determined to uncover them. One afternoon, as she was combing through the ruins, she noticed something unusual. A stone doorway, half buried under centuries of dust and rubble, stood hidden behind a mass of overgrown plants. It was unlike any of the other structures she had seen. This doorway was perfectly smooth, with no carvings or markings, but there was something about it, a sense of power, a feeling that it was important. Intrigued, Jessica decided to investigate further. Using the tools she had scavenged from the wreckage of her ship, she carefully cleared away the debris, revealing more of the door. As she worked, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her, like eyes were upon her even though she was alone. Her mind raced with questions. What lay behind the door? Was it another part of the alien civilization's history, or was it something else entirely? After hours of hard work, the door was finally cleared, and Jessica found herself standing in front of it, breathing heavily from the exertion. The stone was cold to the touch, and as she ran her fingers over its smooth surface, she felt a strange sensation. It was as if the door was alive, almost as though it was waiting for her. Without thinking, she placed her hand on it. To her surprise, the stone began to glow softly, and a low hum filled the air. The vibrations passed through her fingertips, and she felt a strange energy coursing through her body. Suddenly, the door began to shift, slowly opening with a groan of ancient stone. Jessica stepped back, heart pounding in her chest. The door revealed a dark passageway stretching deep into the heart of the planet. She could see nothing beyond the threshold except darkness, and the air that rushed out from the opening smelled stale, like it had been undisturbed for centuries. But there was no turning back now. She had to know what was inside. With a deep breath, Jessica stepped into the darkness. The passage was narrow, and the air felt thick, almost electric. As she walked, her footsteps echoed in the silence. The walls of the tunnel were made of smooth stone, and every now and then she could see faint carvings and symbols along the walls, similar to those she had seen in the ruins outside. But these symbols were different, more complex, more intricate. They seemed to pulse with energy, and the deeper she walked, the stronger the feeling of being watched became. It was as though the walls themselves were alive, observing her every move. The passage twisted and turned, leading her deeper into the planet's interior. The further she went, the colder it became. She could feel the temperature drop with every step. But still, she pressed on. She had no idea what she was looking for, but something told her that this was where the answers lay. After what felt like hours of walking, Jessica finally reached a large chamber. It was unlike anything she had seen before. The walls were lined, with glowing crystals casting an eerie, soft light across the room. In the center of the chamber stood a large pedestal, and atop the pedestal was a small, intricate device. It was made of metal and stone, and it hummed with a quiet energy, as if it were alive. Jessica felt a shiver run down her spine. This was it. This was the heart of the mystery. As she approached the pedestal, the device began to react. The crystals around the room flickered, and the air grew heavy with energy. The humming grew louder, and Jessica could feel the vibrations deep in her bones. She reached out tentatively, her fingers brushing against the device. The moment she touched it, everything around her seemed to come alive. The crystals pulsed with light, and the walls of the chamber seemed to shift like they were moving around her. Jessica's vision blurred, and for a moment she felt as if she were being pulled into the device itself. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything stopped. The room fell silent. The device was still, the crystals no longer glowing. Jessica stood frozen, her hand still on the device. She didn't understand what had just happened, but she knew one thing for sure. She had activated something powerful. And now she had to figure out what it was. Taking a deep breath, Jessica stepped back from the pedestal, trying to steady her racing heart. She had no idea what the device was, but it was clear that it was important. It wasn't just a relic of the past, it was something active, something that had been waiting for the right person to come along and awaken it. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the chamber. It was a low, rhythmic noise, like the sound of machinery starting up. Jessica turned, her heart skipping a beat. From the darkness of the far side of the room, a figure stepped forward. At first, she thought it was another of the glowing creatures she had encountered before. But this figure was different. It was larger, more solid. It moved with purpose, its form shifting and changing with each step, like it was made of light and shadow. Jessica stood still, her mind racing. This was no ordinary creature. It was something far more advanced, far more powerful. The figure stopped in front of her, its glowing form flickering like a distant star, and then, in her mind, she heard it. "You have awoken the device," it said, its voice echoing in her thoughts. "You are the one we have been waiting for." Jessica's breath caught in her throat. The voice wasn't just speaking to her. It was speaking directly into her mind. The words were clear, and yet there was something ancient, something beyond human comprehension in the tone. "Who are you?" Jessica asked, her voice trembling. "We are the Watchers," the figure replied. "We have been watching this planet for eons, waiting for the right time to reveal ourselves. And now, you have come. You are the key to the next stage of our journey." Jessica's mind reeled. The Watchers? What did that mean? What journey were they talking about? She had so many questions, but the answers were still out of her reach. The figure stepped closer, its form glowing brighter. "You are not alone on this planet, Jessica," it said. "You are a part of something much larger. You are a part of a plan that spans the stars, a plan that involves your people and ours." Jessica felt a chill run down her spine. The weight of the words hit her like a tidal wave. She was more than just a survivor now. She was part of something cosmic, something beyond her wildest imagination. And somehow, the device she had activated was at the center of it all. "You are ready," the figure said. "Now you must choose. Will you help us unlock the secrets of the universe, or will you turn away and remain in isolation?" Jessica stood there, her heart racing as the figure's glowing form flickered before her. The choice was hers. The fate of the universe seemed to rest on her shoulders. Jessica stood in the heart of the chamber, her mind spinning with the revelation. She had been alone on a strange planet for so long, struggling to survive, to make sense of the impossible situation she had found herself in. But now, everything had changed. The Watcher, the glowing figure that had appeared before her, had spoken to her in a voice that echoed deep in her mind, telling her that she was more than just a stranded astronaut. She was part of something far larger than she had ever imagined. Her entire existence had led to this moment, and the weight of that knowledge was both thrilling and terrifying. The Watcher's words echoed in her ears. "You are the key to the next stage of our journey." What did that mean? What journey? And why had she, of all people, been chosen? Jessica's thoughts raced, her emotions a chaotic mix of excitement, fear, and confusion. She had barely begun to understand the alien technology she had uncovered, and now she was being asked to make a choice that could affect not just her, but the entire universe. The figure, glowing like a distant star, stood in front of her, waiting. Its presence was not threatening, but it held an undeniable power. Jessica's hand still hovered over the device she had activated, the one that had somehow opened the passage into this chamber. It pulsed softly beneath her fingers, as though it was alive. She had no idea what the device was, what it could do, or what consequences it might have. But one thing was clear. It was connected to the Watchers, to the strange civilization that had once inhabited this planet, and to the plan they had been waiting to carry out. "You have awoken the device," the Watcher's voice echoed again in her mind. "Now you must decide whether to help us unlock the secrets of the universe." Jessica's heart pounded in her chest. The choice felt impossible. What would happen if she agreed? What would happen if she refused? She was just one person, one human. The universe was vast, and she was so small in comparison. And yet the Watchers seemed to believe she was crucial to their plan. They had been watching her for reasons she couldn't fully understand, and now they were asking her to help them. Her mind raced back to the days she had spent alone on the planet, scavenging for food, learning to survive. She had struggled, battled loneliness, and faced the crushing weight of isolation. But even in the darkest moments, she had always kept going, believing that somehow she would find a way home. Now she realized that home might never be the place she had imagined. Maybe her home was here, with these Watchers, in this strange corner of the universe. The Watcher's glowing form flickered, and Jessica knew it was waiting for her answer. She had to decide. But how could she possibly know what the right choice was? What if helping the Watchers led to disaster? What if they were not the benevolent explorers they seemed to be? Her mind filled with questions, doubts, and fears, but one thing kept standing out. She was not alone anymore. The isolation she had felt on this planet, the loneliness that had nearly crushed her spirit, had been replaced by something else. Something bigger. Something important. "You are ready," the Watcher's voice whispered again, pulling her out of her thoughts. "The device you have activated is only the beginning. It is the key to unlocking our journey, and your journey, but only if you choose to join us." Jessica's hand trembled as she reached out to touch the device again. It pulsed with a soft, rhythmic hum, and for a moment she felt like she could feel the pulse of the universe itself. There was power here, in this ancient chamber, in the stone walls, in the glowing crystals that surrounded her. She could feel the weight of it, the potential of it, and for the first time since her crash, she felt like she was part of something that mattered. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. Her decision would change everything. Her life, her future, the future of the entire universe. It all depended on this moment. And yet, despite the fear and uncertainty that swirled within her, Jessica knew one thing with certainty. She could not turn away. She had been given this chance, this connection with the Watchers, and she had to see it through. There was something about their plan, about their purpose, that felt like destiny. She had been brought here for a reason, and now she had to take the next step. Opening her eyes, Jessica spoke, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. "I will help you. I don't know how yet, but I'll help you." The Watcher's form flickered once more, and for a moment, Jessica thought she saw a flash of something like approval in the creature's shifting glow. Then, the voice echoed, in her mind again, but this time, there was a sense of finality to it. "It is done." Suddenly, the air in the chamber grew thick, and the device beneath her hand began to hum louder. The crystals lining the walls flickered to life, their glow intensifying. The entire chamber seemed to vibrate with energy, and Jessica could feel the ground beneath her feet shift. She stepped back, her heart racing as the walls of the chamber seemed to move, as though they were opening up to reveal something hidden deep inside the planet. From the shadows, a second figure appeared, similar to the first but larger, its form glowing even more brightly. It moved with purpose, its presence commanding the space around it. Jessica watched in awe as it approached the pedestal where the device rested. "This is just the beginning," the Watcher's voice resonated once more. "You have unlocked the first step, but there is more to be done. The device you activated is a map, a key to the lost knowledge of the Ancient Ones. We have waited for millennia for someone to find it, someone with the ability to awaken it." Jessica's mind raced. A map? A key? The ancient civilization that had lived here. What had they known? What had they left behind? What was this map supposed to lead to? The larger figure spoke again, its voice calm and deep. "You will have to go deeper. You will have to travel beneath the surface of this planet, to the place where the true power lies. The map will guide you, but you must trust it and trust yourself." For a moment, Jessica was paralyzed with uncertainty. Travel deeper, beneath the surface. She had no idea what that would mean, what dangers lay ahead. She had barely begun to understand the technology around her, and now she was being asked to go even further into the unknown. But the Watchers seemed confident, almost certain that she was the one they had been waiting for. She could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on her. "Do you accept?" the Watcher asked, its voice soft but filled with urgency. Taking a deep breath, Jessica nodded. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew one thing. She had to see it through. She had come this far, and now there was no turning back. She was no longer just a stranded astronaut. She was part of something bigger, a part of a cosmic journey that was just beginning. "I accept," she said firmly. The larger watcher extended a glowing hand, and Jessica stepped forward, placing her hand in its. As soon as their hands touched, a surge of energy passed through her like an electric shock. She gasped, feeling the power course through her veins. Images flashed in her mind, visions of distant stars, of other worlds, of the ancient civilization that had once lived on this planet. The device, the map, was leading her somewhere, showing her the way. It was all becoming clearer now, the path she needed to follow. The watcher's voice echoed in her mind one last time. "The journey begins now. Follow the map and you will find the truth." And with that, the chamber seemed to shift, the walls moving once more, revealing a hidden passage that led even deeper into the heart of the planet. Jessica took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to face whatever awaited her. Jessica's heart pounded as she stood at the entrance of the newly revealed passageway. The walls of the chamber seemed to pulse with energy, the glow of the crystals lighting her path. The air was thick with a sense of urgency, as though the planet itself was alive and waiting for her to take the next step. The Watcher, now joined by a second, even larger figure, had guided her here, telling her that the device she had activated was only the beginning. The map was showing her the way to something deeper, something hidden beneath the surface of the planet. She had accepted the Watcher's offer, unsure of where the journey would take her, but certain that she was now part of something much larger than herself. The weight of that knowledge pressed down on her chest, but it also filled her with a sense of purpose. She wasn't just a stranded astronaut anymore. She had become the key to unlocking the secrets of a lost civilization, to uncovering the truth that had been hidden away for millennia. And the Watchers, these strange, glowing beings, believed that she was the one who could do it. The passage ahead was narrow, winding into the depths of the planet like a forgotten tunnel, and Jessica hesitated for only a moment before stepping forward. The Watcher's voice echoed in her mind once more, a reminder of what was at stake. "Follow the map. Trust it. It will lead you to the truth." She had no idea what truth the Watchers were talking about, but she was determined to find out. The map, the device, had already shown her glimpses of things she couldn't quite comprehend. Visions of distant stars, of ancient civilizations, and of knowledge far beyond human understanding. It was overwhelming, but it also felt like a calling, as though this was what she had been meant to do all along. This was no accident. She had crashed on this planet for a reason. The Watchers had waited for her. And now she had a choice, to turn back or to move forward into the unknown. With each step she took, the passage seemed to grow darker, the air colder. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she descended deeper into the planet, the walls of the tunnel narrowing until she had to walk in single file. The ground beneath her feet was uneven, rocky, and slippery in places, but she pressed on, following the faint glow from the crystals embedded in the walls. The deeper she went, the stronger the sensation of being watched grew, like invisible. Eyes were tracking her every move. She couldn't see anyone, but she could feel their presence, a constant pressure in the air. After what felt like hours of walking, Jessica reached a large chamber. It was unlike anything she had seen before. The walls were made of a smooth, dark stone, and the air in the room was thick with energy, vibrating in a way that made her skin tingle. At the center of the room stood a massive structure, its surface covered in glowing symbols and intricate carvings. It was nothing like the ruins she had seen outside. It was far more advanced, far more mysterious. This was the heart of the planet, the place the Watchers had been guiding her toward. She stepped closer, her breath catching in her throat as she studied the structure. It was shaped like a large cylindrical tower, but unlike anything from her world. The surface seemed to shimmer, as though the stone itself was alive, shifting, and changing with every passing moment. The symbols carved into the walls of the tower pulsed with a soft light, and the patterns shifted before her eyes. like they were moving in response to her presence. Jessica felt a surge of energy, a deep connection to the structure, as though it were calling to her. The map, the device, had led her here. This was what it had been showing her. This was the truth. As she approached the tower, the ground beneath her feet trembled, and the air grew heavier. She could feel the power radiating from the structure, and it was overwhelming. It was as though the entire planet was alive, reacting to her presence. The symbols on the tower began to glow brighter, the light becoming more intense until it nearly blinded her. Jessica shielded her eyes, taking a step back, her heart racing in her chest. She had no idea what was happening, but she could sense that this was a turning point, a moment that would change everything. The Watcher's voice echoed in her mind again, calm and reassuring. "You are ready. The truth awaits." She took a deep breath and reached out, her hand trembling as she touched the surface of the tower. The moment her fingers made contact, a jolt of energy shot through her, and the symbols on the tower flared to life. The walls around her seemed to dissolve, and she was pulled into a vision, a flood of images that overwhelmed her senses. For a moment, she was no longer standing in the chamber. She was floating in space, surrounded by stars and distant galaxies. She saw ancient civilizations, long forgotten, their knowledge and technology spread across the universe. She saw the Watchers, their true form, beings of light and energy far beyond anything she could comprehend. They had been traveling the stars for eons, watching, learning, and seeking the answers to questions that no one else could answer. Their purpose was to preserve knowledge, to safeguard the universe's secrets, and to guide those who were worthy of carrying that knowledge forward. Jessica saw the destruction of worlds, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the countless struggles that had shaped the universe. She saw herself, her life, and the crash that had brought her here. She was a part of something far bigger than she had ever imagined. The crash wasn't a mistake. It had been a necessary event, a moment in time that had led her to this point, to this place. The vision shifted, and she saw the planet she was standing on. But it was different. It was once a thriving world, a hub of activity and knowledge filled with life and energy. But something had gone wrong. The civilization that had built this place had vanished, leaving behind only remnants of their existence. The Watchers had been sent to preserve the planet, to ensure that its knowledge would not be lost, and to wait for someone worthy to continue their work. Jessica's mind reeled as the visions continued to flood her thoughts. She saw the device she had activated. The map was not just a guide. It was a key to unlocking the secrets of the universe, to discovering knowledge that could change the course of history. The Watchers had been waiting for someone to find it, someone with the potential to unlock its power. And that someone was her. The vision shifted again, and Jessica saw the future. She saw herself working with the Watchers, using the knowledge of the ancient civilization to rebuild and restore the lost worlds of the universe. She saw herself becoming more than just an astronaut, more than just a survivor. She saw herself as a leader, someone who would guide others and help them understand the universe's secrets. The power of the map, of the knowledge it contained, was immense, and it was hers to wield. The vision faded, and Jessica was back in the chamber, standing before the tower. Her heart was racing, her mind reeling from the flood of information she had just experienced. The weight of the truth pressed down on her, but she knew now that she was ready. The Watchers had shown her the way, and now it was up to her to carry the torch forward. The larger Watcher appeared before her, its glowing form flickering like a distant star. It spoke to her in a voice that was both calming and filled with purpose. "You have seen the truth. You have unlocked the knowledge of the ancient ones. Now you must carry it forward. The universe is waiting for you." Jessica nodded, feeling a sense of clarity wash over her. The path ahead was uncertain, but she was no longer afraid. She had a purpose now, a mission. The knowledge of the past, the secrets of the universe were in her hands, and she would use them to guide the future. With one last look at the tower, Jessica turned and walked toward the exit of the chamber. The Watchers stood behind her, their glowing forms watching over her, guiding her as she stepped into the unknown. The universe was vast, and she had just begun to understand its mysteries. But she knew one thing for sure: she was no longer alone. She was part of something far greater than herself, and together, they would shape the future. Kauman